Tonight's class, with these props of block and bolster, we're going to start with none of them in the first pose, but do have the bolster, if you have one, to your left side towards front end of the mat. So we're going to start with the knees high and bottom about the middle of the mat. And we're going to come into banana pose. So we lie down on the ground and take the hands back. Just allow yourself to very gently interlace your fingers, and then allow yourself to lengthen your legs out towards the front end of your mat and allow the legs to be together, just loosely touching. And you'll notice that for most of us, the shoulders are a bit tight and it pulls the chest up towards the sky, and it creates quite a big curve in the lower back. So we're going to wriggle the feet out a little bit, we'll wriggle the shoulders underneath, we'll try and get that pelvis to sort of relax into the ground a bit more. And then we're going to take the shoulders over towards our right side. So we come into a little bit of a side bend, and we're still going to try and keep both shoulder blades flat to the ground and turn the head in the right direction as well. And then when you feel safe, you just take the legs one leg at a time out towards that right corner, and you can adjust as you need. And again, we're trying to have the back of the pelvis, the back of the hips, feeling flat to the ground. So if they've lifted away, then you just need to bring your feet a little bit closer back to that center line, so you can relax your hips and your shoulders flat against the floor. Take it too far and you lift it away, you're really not going to be able to relax very comfortably. You've gone past that point that you need to be. We're just going to allow ourselves to breathe here and enjoy some relaxed breaths into the ribs. It's called the banana pose. If you can imagine looking at yourself from the ceiling down, you would be the shape of a banana or getting close to it. You can, in fact, if you want to increase, lift your left leg up and just cross the ankles over the right. But if you do that, lift your hip, or it creates a pain in your lower back or in towards your pelvis, then definitely bring the foot back gently and bring it back to the floor. That just means you're tugging a little bit on your sciatic nerve. We don't really need to be doing that this evening. So slowly bring the hands and the shoulders back onto the center line, and then to the outside of the body. Bring the legs back to where we think the center line is. You could look if you wished. And then when you're ready on the exhale, you'll take the shoulders over to the left side. And once you've settled, you would do the same with the legs, taking them across. So again, making sure that you are allowing yourself to lay flat as you can onto the mat. So the two halves of the two shoulder blades would have equal pressure through them, and also both sides of the back of the hips would feel like they've got the same amount of weight. Stretch obviously would go down the side of the ribs, and when you breathe, that will intensify a little bit. So you need to sort of accommodate that space-wise a little bit as well. And it doesn't matter if the amount of side bend that you get from one side to the other is different. It's unlikely that your rib cage is exactly symmetric. And then on top of that, you've got kind of the history of life, the trauma in your body of everyday actions that mean one side of the body can be tighter than the other possibly. It could be even something as simple as sitting in the car for a long time driving would create an imbalance in your body, and you would notice it in this pose particularly. Try to let those breaths settle as much as you can. So a slower breath than perhaps you would normally have if you were sitting. And allow a little bit of freeness in the lower belly area. So that expands easily. And obviously contracts when you exhale. Okay. We'll start to shuffle the shoulders and the legs back onto the center line. And once you come back in, bring your hands actually out to the side, palms up, so the hands are in line with your shoulders or your chest. Chest would probably allow you to get the shoulders to roll under a little bit more easily. And we're going to bring the feet in towards the bottom. And then once we've done that, I'm going to shimmy the hips over towards the right side and slide the left leg out. I bring my right foot on top of my right thigh as I start to turn my hips over towards the left. And I try to arrange that bolster in a position where my ankle and my knee are supported. I'm going to use my hand as well to help it down a little bit. And in doing this, I want to try to keep the shoulders flat to the ground, as flat as they can naturally. Sometimes you might need to wriggle around a little bit and get into the pose. It is important to have the ankle and the shin and the knee touching the bolster so they're supported. If you're only touching on your knee and your ankle is hanging out to the side somewhere, it will actually reflect in the amount of strain that you get in the joints of your hips and in your lower back. So we want to make sure it's supported, at least in the worst case, having the foot on the bolster if your knee doesn't touch. There's a fairly easy reclined single-legged twist. It happens to put quite a lot of pressure through the joints in the spine, in the mid-back, the lower back area, and stretches big and small muscles alike. Let ourselves bring the foot back to the mat and bring the knees high as we bring the heels in towards the bottom, and then we'll just lift our bolster up and move it across to the other side, which is not an insurmountable thing to do. It's quite a heavy bolster. Take the hips over to the left and to the right leg out. Left foot comes on top of the thigh. Turn the hips over. Find the bolster. Allows us to move around a little bit to the shoulders, whatever we need to do. Interestingly enough, when we're talking about the body not always being the same on each side, as on the previous side, my ankle, shin, and knee were all able to touch the bolster. On this side, get about 1.5 to 2 inches of my knee above the bolster. It's not going to touch on this side. Haven't got as much rotation in the spine or looseness in the hips. And making sure that the foot is supported. And then we'll change from there as well. So bringing the feet back on, moving myself back into the center. Move the bolster over to the other side, just so you can see what's going on more than anything else. You don't need to do that. We're coming to happy baby, so I'm going to let the legs draw in towards the body and bring the hands onto the shin to start with. And allow the spine to get very flat and long. The back of the neck is included in that as well. Once the knees feel like they've opened out to the side as much as they naturally can, bring your arms onto the inside of the shins and slide your fingers along the shin bones towards your ankles. Allow yourself to lift the soles of your feet towards the sky. Now, if you've got a lot of mobility in your hips, then you might be able to take the hands around the little toe area very easily and allow the body weight of your legs and your arms to draw you in. If you're a little tighter in the hips, lower back, either through a combination of flexibility or mobility, then holding on to the ankles will be the place that you'll be and stay. You see quite a lot of people make a big effort to get their hands around. And then when they do that, the tailbone kind of lifts away from the floor. So they're really resting on the middle back. What we're trying to do is have the back very flat to the ground. So knees wide as they will naturally fall, shins vertical, and hands either on the shin bone, ankle, or side of the little toe. All we really want is body weight and gravity to work for us. We'll take a little breath from there. Roll over to whichever side you like to lift from. Hands to lift up. We're going to come into saddle pose, which is a kneeling posture. And in my body, I know that I can, once I've brought my knees together and my heels out wide, take one block and place that underneath my sitting bones. And my knees are going to be happy about that, and they're okay. My ankles are going to be okay as well. If that is not the case in your body, take the end of the bolster and put that where you've got the block. So you're just sitting on the end of it. I'm trying to get a little bit of internal rotation and allowing the body to sit up tall and just rest. As you can feel, it works quite a lot on those knee joints, ankle joints, hips. Now, some of these poses will challenge you a lot, some of them less so. We know that they don't last forever, so there's this sort of instinctive level that we're looking at where we know that something is happening, but it's not so excessive that it's causing us to grit our teeth or hold our breath or make our eyes wince a little bit of water. And there will be some people out there who can sit directly on the floor, no props needed. They've just got more open knees. That's genetically how the knees have developed in their body, and that just means that's their body. We'll move from this saddle pose into something called deer pose. So first of all, we use the fingers and lift up. Now, if you have overcooked it a little bit on your legs, you might need to stretch them out, but hopefully they'll be okay. And you can turn the block from a portrait to a landscape. Now, I've got my left leg bent and the knee is pointing out towards the side a little bit. So this is my left foot. And in the arch of my foot, my right shin bone is sitting. My right knee is on the ground, kind of important. The toes are pointing backwards. I'm just trying to let this right hip drop down to the floor. So I'm going to put a little bit more weight on that by just letting my hands rest there. Not pressing down, just letting myself sit. Now, if you find that your body is kind of curving to the side and you can feel it tiring your back muscles and your neck, then by all means put the left hand down onto the floor and prop yourself up a little bit. And if you needed to, if you couldn't reach the floor, you could always take the bolster and put that underneath your hand by the side. And again, just give yourself that little prop up, that little bit of assistance to get to a comfortable place. Again, allowing ourselves to breathe. There's plenty of opportunity sort of out of your peripheral vision to notice that your belly is expanding and contracting. Let the shoulders relax as well. Kind of hunting around the body and eliminating tension with our breath. Let ourselves lift up and pivot the feet over to the opposite side. Move the block around a little bit if you need. And sit yourself back. Again, take a little time to move in. And you have to use that little bit of assist or change the bolster over to the opposite side. Just allow yourself to relax. Again, this is one of those ones where you can spot quite big differences between one side of the body and the other. That's very natural. Though I feel comfortable sitting in this position, on the previous side, both sitting bones were able to touch the block. On this, I'm very much noticing that I'm sitting on one. But trying to see that as a potential, this space to move into, accentuate the positive in our thoughts. I'm going to lean out towards my right to allow the legs to untangle. And I'm going to move forward just that little bit off of the block, so legs can lay flat to the ground. Again, it might take a little bit of time to kind of wriggle through and feel like you're more comfortable on your sitting bones. Remember to bring your hands onto your shins, allow yourself to drop your chin towards your chest and start to allow your spine to round. Now, two things will happen. One, the upper back will start to sink, and if you sort of bring your chin down towards your groin rather than traveling forwards to your knees, your pelvis will roll back a little bit as well, which is just what we're looking for. It's called caterpillar pose. Not so easy to breathe into the belly. But if you slow that breath down, you'll find that it moves quite happily by itself into the back of your ribs. You can feel that from the back of your neck, the top of the back of the neck, all the way down the spine, sides, tailbone, and possibly into the hamstrings as well. The nerves right up in your toes. Take a little breath, tighten the tummy muscles in a little bit, lift up. Across the ankles over and roll onto the knees and move my block out to the side. I bring myself into a sleeping swan pose. Now you could come into this from down dog if you wanted to stretch your legs out a little bit first. But once you've arrived back down on your knees or from your down dog, you bring your toes together, touching at the back of the center line. And then you'll take your left knee to the outside of your left wrist and bring your heel more or less to the center line of the mat, so it's underneath the groin. And use the toes of your right foot to walk the foot back. Now you could, if you wanted to, place the block underneath the sort of outside edge of the left hip towards the sitting bone. If you find yourself rolling off to the side a lot. If you're finding that it's stressful to be on the wrists, you can bring the bolster across the front of the mat, just roll yourself down onto your elbows. But if you are able to stay in a slightly higher position, you can roll the shoulders back and let your chest sink and your belly sink. Enjoy a little bit more compression through the spine in various places, as well as getting a big stretch into that opening of the joint of the hip. A lot of work taking place. It's not unlike pigeon pose, which you're probably familiar with, except in this one we are letting the body sink down into the ground a little bit more. Albeit we've tried to bring the hands underneath the shoulders. Gives us a little bit more of a shoulder stretch. Move slowly back out and make our way into the second side. When you're ready, and so to the side So right knee out and to the side, right heel under the groin, left leg walks back. Again, you could have taken that from a kneeling position or from a down dog position if you wanted to stretch the legs out a little bit more. Okay, I'm going to let the shoulders move around a little bit so they get a little closer towards the ears. Belly is soft, relaxed. Another thing you can do if your wrists are starting to grumble a little bit about being sort of rested into for a couple of minutes at a time with body weight is to come up onto fists and allow the thumbs to point forwards. Have the fingernails pointing out towards the sky so you can see them rather than tucked in towards your palm. And again, you can let those shoulders kind of roll back and the face to sink in. You might find that the stretches the front of the groin area in this case on the left side because the left leg is behind us. That's your hip flexors running into your psoas muscle. Your psoas muscle. Again, in these poses, head position is really a choice. Just remember that your head is heavy. Stretch your neck muscles if you're letting it drop, but it feels more comfortable. That's the place to be. We'll move slowly out of this pose as well. I'm going to roll out of that one by just moving gently down onto the right hip and swinging the legs out again towards the front of the mat. I'm actually going to take the legs wide as I can, squeaking on the laminate floor, and then just press myself forwards a little bit with a bit of a bend in the knees. So I move onto the front edge of my sitting bones. Because if you have the square version of sitting bones, you'll definitely need to do that. I'm going to bring the left heel in towards the ground, so the shin and the thigh are on the floor. Again, you can pack that if you need to with bolsters and blocks. We'll take the hands in front, about shoulder distance apart. Allow myself to walk the fingers forwards just a comfortable distance, and then bend. Maybe allow myself to round. Now the leg that's extended out might curl in, might curl out to the side, might point up towards the sky. You might start to get a bit of a bend in the knee. All of those things are okay. Again, you could bring the bolster here in front of you if you wanted to, and let yourself relax down on that. Some people have got more mobility than others to get down. Again, a rounded shoulders and the head drop fully, so you're going to start to really feel the weight of the head as you start to let your head drop a bit more. And lift up. And tangle the legs. Working to the second side. So give yourself a moment or two before you sort of move yourself into the pose. Let your body adjust just to changes from being in the pose to back into a more upright position. And then when you feel ready, the breath can stay relaxed. You're not fighting your body, and you can sink down again, just taking the hands a little wider than the shoulders if you wish, or the elbows to come down towards the ground, taking the time to let your head sink in towards the floor. Let's press the hands into the floor and let ourselves lift back up. We'll untangle the legs again. Only this time, we're going to turn the body towards that left leg, hands either side of the leg, and then let ourselves fall down over that thigh. So pretty much the same thing, but with both legs opened out. So we're turning the body towards one leg rather than down the center. Now you're going to feel this in your lower back, sort of to the side edges more. Use your hands to lift up. Use your way through the center line. Put head out to the opposite leg. Allow yourself to sink down. So let's lift slowly back out of that. You probably need to use your hands underneath the back of your legs to just instigate the beginning of a lift. And give myself a little bit more room to the sides of the mat, so I just move the bolsters and the blocks forwards. Take my feet towards the back of the mat, roll down onto my belly. Really want to make sure that my chest and my chin are going to be on the mat. Feet on the center line, bring the feet together, and bring the hands underneath the chin, and then just slide the right leg out to the side about 90 degrees. Let the shin follow the line of the mat, toes pointing outwards, and turn the head towards the right side as well. Coming into frog pose, just relaxing into this. Now you might need to wriggle your shoulders and your elbows around a little bit as your body kind of succumbs and yields into the floor a little. So don't feel you have to sit for a lot in one place. start to bring the foot back on, the leg out. Take a little breath. And do the same to the left leg out to the side. Let it settle down there. You would normally turn your head towards the left, but I'm not going to be able to demonstrate that and be able to see the clock at the same time. So I'm going to keep my head turning the opposite way, which won't give me quite as much benefit. Just makes it a little harder to relax around the shoulders and the neck area. So not a deal breaker. Obviously, we want to give our bodies every opportunity to relax into the pose. Keeping the breath soft, you can be able to feel your belly breathing into your lungs. Feel a bit of lift and fall. Just allowing your mind to feel your body, to see where you're holding tension, and then see if you can either breathe into that or move a little bit into it to make it feel a little softer. A nice way of releasing stress and rebalancing the sacrum. Bring the leg back on. Now sort of roll to whichever side you prefer. Move towards your body, and then use your hands to lift so you come up from the ground very smoothly, looking after your spine. I'm going to take the block towards the back of the mat. The knees to come high, roll the spine down, using the arms to support. And then the first thing I'm going to do is make sure that the block is under my head, not pressing into my neck or my shoulders. Wriggle the shoulders underneath, lift the tailbone away from the floor and lengthen the spine away a little bit. And then with the feet close in towards my bottom, I'm just going to turn the toes and the soles of the feet towards each other. And you can let your hands remain on your belly if you wish, or you can take them out to the side, wherever you feel it's more comfortable, more natural. So we're taking the previous pose where we worked on one leg at a time into the sacrum. And now we're working into the groins and the sacrum again. The key to this is trying to get the spine to be long. So that little lift that we do at the beginning, lengthen the spine out to reduce the curves, the natural curves in the spine as much as possible. Keeping the weight evenly distributed through the pelvis. Again, if your eyes are slightly open, you'll maybe seeing out the peripheral vision whether one knee is higher than the other. If it is, just let it be. See what happens when we just wait and breathe. Maybe it'll move, maybe it won't, maybe it'll be holding on to whatever it needs to hold on to. Sometimes it can take many years for things to work their way out of the hips. Okay, now we're going to start to bring the hands underneath the back of the thighs and press the hands into the thighs, lift them together. So initiating that move with the fingers assisting. We don't take all of the weight through the groin of the lift. Allow the hips to have a moment just to rock out, so the knees high. And then we're going to roll on to whichever side you prefer. We're going to allow ourselves to press away from the floor and lift back up again to sitting. So I'm going to take the block from the back of the mat towards the front. We'll have it on the end on, so the lowest level end on, but not flat to the ground. If that makes any sense at all. And then we're going to come onto all fours and take a little breath, toes underneath, and move into a down dog. Just stretch the body out a little bit. Let's feel the back of the legs opening. Now I'm going to walk the feet slowly in towards the front of the mat, so at least a foot distance each step. And when I get close to the end of this and that, I'm going to bring the hands onto the block. Allow myself to lift up a little bit. So I can take some of the weight of my body through the arms and off of my back, and allow the back of the legs to really kind of straighten out as much as possible. I'm actually going to press the weight into the heels a little, just a fraction. In yin practice, this is called the dangle pose. Belly is soft. Body is supported by hands and feet. Okay. Allow myself to bring my hands onto the hips, off the knees, self lift up. Once I arrive, I make sure that my feet are about hip distance apart and parallel and very close to the front of the mat. Bring the hands into the heart and soften the knees over the toes. Take a little breath and load the weight into the left foot. And slide the right foot as far back as I can. I'm going to drop the heel in as if I'm going to take warrior two, but I'm going to draw the hands behind the back immediately, interlacing the fingers down towards the floor, so open the chest. Then turn the hips and the shoulders towards the front of the mat. Allow myself to hinge out over that front thigh. And once the body starts to rest into the thigh, I lift the hands towards the ceiling. Take another breath. Allow myself to float a little closer to the ground. Taking another breath, I'm going to bring the hands down to the floor and then move them onto the inside of the front leg. And walk the fingers around to the long side of the mat, holding the toes with me. The hands more or less underneath the shoulders and the arms straight. I'm going to move the right hand to the center of my heart. Start to lift the left elbow, twisting the body towards the left side and taking the left hand to the sky. Use the hand back down to the floor. Cross it over to the opposite side. Allow those legs to straighten. Come down again. Take it to the opposite side. And down again. One more time. All right. As I arrive back, walk the fingers through to the front of the mat, turning the toes into a lunge. The breath pushes the toes into the forward bend. And the feet parallel, hip distance apart with soft knees and a flat back to lift as I draw the belly in tight to the spine. Take the hands high as you breathe in and bring them back in towards your heart. Soften your knees over your toes. Load the weight into the right leg. Slide the left foot far back into the lunge as you can, and then drop the heel in. Again, as if you're going to take warrior two, but we take the hands behind for humble warrior. Rotate the body towards the front of the mat. Stand over that front thigh. Take a breath. Start to lift the hands on the exhale. Take another breath. Lower the body down a little deeper, lifting the head, and move towards the floor. I'll take a breath here, and use the exhale to slowly bring the hands down to the floor. Move both hands onto the inside of that front leg. Walk the fingers around to the long side again. Turn the toes in, heels out. This time we're going to start with the left hand on the floor underneath the heart. Put the right elbow, twisting the body to the right, and extending the hand towards the sky. Bring the hand back down to the floor. We'll take it to the opposite side. Let's breath in. Easy down to the ground. Body is long, weight is even between the feet. Right side twist. Final side twist. Move the hands down to the floor. We walk them through to the front of the mat. Now this time we come back into down dog. We'll arrange the feet again a little bit. Getting back into good alignment for our down dog. And then bring the knees down to the floor. Sit back onto the heels and take the block with you. Now, you might want to bring the bolster towards you just in case. You bring the hands forwards and come into a deep squat. So I'm going to turn the toes underneath, lift the knees away from the ground, and rest the heels on the block, and then turn the toes out to the side. Now, if you're not able to do that, you're not able to get the heels on the ground comfortably, you can actually just take the bolster, allow yourself to sit on the end of that, and then take your feet out wider so that the feet are flat to the floor. So you get the same posture, just one is going to feel a little bit more intense than the other. So if, for instance, you don't feel comfortable with your balance, it can feel like you're going to spring like a coiled spring out of the squat, then really you want to be able to relax, and the bolster would be a great way of doing that. Again, if your ankle flexion is not particularly high, then again you might find it tricky on the ankles or the knees. It might just be too much pressure. But it feels really the best place for you to be in a squat that you can hold for a couple of minutes. Some people like to take their hands out to the side and just rest their arms on top of their knees. Some people like to bring the hands in a little bit more into prayer. You can even let the head drop and rest your forehead on your own thumbs if your hands are in prayer. That can feel quite nice as well. Wherever you are, I hope you can breathe easily and relax into the pose. We'll be here for about a minute more. Okay, so let's come out of that. So the easiest way to come out is sit the hands behind, put the bottom down on the block if you're using the block, and take the legs out. On the bolster, probably easier to stand or just roll forwards onto your knees. We come into final resting posture, Shavasana, which could be completely traditional version with the feet out to the corner edges of the mat, spine flat on the ground, long legs and hands out to the side. But you might want to revisit some of the work we've done in the hips already and the groins, replacing the bolster underneath the back of the thighs, just making sure that your heels do touch the ground when you're in the posture, and then allowing yourself to ease your hands into position to assist coming down to the floor. Give yourself an opportunity to wriggle the spine out and the shoulders. The spine, although once it comes down to the floor is straight, it still has potential to kind of move a little further. So make sure to use that with some wriggling. And then closing your eyes, allow yourself to be completely still. Just let the jaw rest open a little bit, the tongue drift away from the roof of the mouth, and allow yourself to concentrate on the pattern of your breath. And just notice if it has a pattern. And if you wanted to, you could consider finding a word for your breath as it is at the moment. Keeping your eyes closed, gradually begin to stretch your fingers and toes. Allow your wrists and ankles to be moving as well. Breathing a little deeper, connecting your mind and your body and breath a little more. And there's a nice established feeling in your body of connection. Allow yourself to stretch out in a way that feels good with an exhale. And then allow the heels to slide along and over the top of the bolsters. Let the knees sink towards you. Take your hands around the shins again and let the knees just rest and open. And we can keep the knees together as we roll over to the right side this time. Mindful of the props. Use the hands to press down into the floor on the exhale to very gently bring ourselves back up to sitting. And sitting tall, we can bring the hands together. In this prayer position, we'll close the eyes, take a longer breath in. Allow the head to drop gently, chin to chest. Finding the belly drawn to the spine, allow a simple bow to fall, just to seal your practice for the evening. On the inhale, allow the breath to lift your spine, your head. Namaste. Hope you enjoyed this evening's class, and see you again on that soon. Take care.